Promotional art gallery. Yep, seen that plenty of times. That's a cool shot. You know, when this game was announced, I was very much on the fence about getting it because their previous game was Uncharted 3 and I was kind of like, you know what? I liked Uncharted 3, but it's a little much. It's just so I don't know. I don't know how to put it, but it just seemed like there was just far too much going on, and I was really on the fence with this game. And then I just bought it because I was like, you know what, whatever. Let's just give it a shot. And I ended up thinking it was fantastic. I ended up thinking that, yeah, this game's definitely one of my favorite games of all time. So you never know with developers, right? They can kind of put out a game that's not super great, and then they put something out that's totally awesome the next time. So I wonder if these are concepts for Joel. They just don't look right. Ooh, look at this guy. This is like the city in Boston. Looks very much like the concept art, not concept art, what you see in the end game. And this whole part of the game in Boston, it kind of reminds me of City 17 in Half-Life 2. Just the feeling of being oppressed. And like humanity is being like hurtled into these small fenced-in areas, you know, amidst ruins. Very much like Half-Life 2. Yeah, this shot as well. You see stuff like this in Half-Life. And then this is just beyond the this zone, just beyond the walls, all the ruins. And I wonder, it seems like at this point they hadn't entirely decided on the look of the infected. These guys here don't seem to have that that fungal look to them that the game ultimately settles on. Looks like a warehouse that's been turned into a living quarters. Oh yeah, look at that, like IKEA or something. This teaming up with Tess. Tess looks a lot younger in this shot. Could this be Marlene? And that's Ellie with her backpack listening to her Walkman. There's the fungus. Okay, we've looped around. Next one. This is heading towards the building. Yeah, inside the big slanted building. And then they had to head to that golden domed roof. The museum. This is a really good one here. You can see that like Joel and Ellie and Tess are just very blocky. It's more about getting the overall environment and mood rather than, you know, accurately drawing the characters. And the lighting is important too. Like the lighting here is pretty much the same as you see it in the game. The kind of colors used and everything. Subway. Tess. The one on the right is kind of where they settled on for Tess. You can see on the left, she looks like she almost has dreads or something. The rain. Oh, this is right after they scan Ellie. And it turns out Ellie is infected. And Marlene, Tess is like, oh my god, what's going on? Some coppers. They're not cops, but oppressors. Ooh. You see a whole lot more of this stuff in part 2. And they really play with it as well. Like, there's enemy types that are kind of like blended into the fungus and you can't really see them and they emerge. I love stuff like that. That was really cool. Yeah, you can see that they don't even have eyes at this point. These are the clicker types. Okay, we've cycled back. And I think this is Bill. We're heading into Bill's town at this point. Progress. The bows. Oh yeah, when Joel's upside down. Swinging dumpster lid door. I don't think that ever happens in the game. And I don't think you ever go to a place like this as well. I don't think so. Well, no, yeah, Bill, there's a church that Bill hangs out at. You never really see it from that angle, though. It's really cool how have all this incidental detail, too. Various kinds of machinery. It's almost like each of these little things tells a story in itself. You know, it makes you wonder, like, the hell is going on with the top left, right? Like, what exactly were they preparing for? Yeah, so that's the church. Here's the high school. They fill it with a bunch of buses. Yep, that's the exact layout, too. Pretty much. That's where you fight the bloater. Okay, weird shot. Pittsburgh, heading to Pittsburgh. That's Bill. Oh, you can see that they've approved of one design. Can I zoom in? No, I can't zoom in. But H says approved. Although, Bill doesn't really look like H. He looks more like B to me. Oh, shoot. Was that all of them? Ooh, that's creepy. Oh, crap. That's a bloater. They settle on B for the bloaters. The red hue. Oh, yeah. It's when you run into the hunters. Whoa. One thing that I'll mention for 2 that I thought was really great was how the environment kind of echoed like the emotional state of the characters. Well, in particular Ellie. That's not really a thing in the first game. At least not to the extent that it is in 2. And in that sense, it's almost like a psychological horror kind of feeling, where anytime you're flashing back, it's really bright and it's kind of optimistic, and there's this kind of overall happy feeling, although, you know, it's kind of bittersweet. But in terms of the present events that are happening in 2, Seattle is basically about to get hit by a storm, and that's very different in 2 as well, is that it takes place over, the present events take place over a very small kind of like location geographically, as well as time frame. They do have flashbacks and even like a bit of a time skip, but for the bulk of the game, yeah, it takes place like in a very focused amount of time. And that's kind of different with this game. In 1, a lot of time passes. If if you look at Ellie here, it seems like they hadn't really settled on the age of her. This figure for Ellie looks a little more mature compared to the Ellie that would end up in the game. This is Henry. Looks like one of the Wayans brothers. Ooh. Hunter. See, their eyes are like kind of bloodshot. They look like they're almost infected and crazed themselves, but they're just regular humans. Well, they're like possibly eating people at that point. The suburbs. This must have been a concept for Henry and Sam that they changed. Whoa. When the light exposes on skin, they start to deteriorate. That never happens in the game. Maybe they were thinking about like a gameplay element that they would start to fall apart in the light. This is just about heading to the generator. Yeah, the hydroelectric power plant. What's the difference? Oh, kind of like the lighting. There's like this afternoon glow, a sunset, and then not here. And then this is like in the night with the spotlights. These could be shots for Jackson. Look, they're growing crops. But of course you only see Jackson from afar. Yeah, these are intended to be Jackson. Where Tommy is at. Yeah, the power plant. I figure that they kind of decided not to show Jackson up close because they knew that they were going to have to show like a whole, town that was thriving, and that's just too much time and effort for what they were trying to do. Riding the horses. Like, this is a crazy piece of concept art. Like, it's just so... This almost could be a photograph. It's so well done. So this is the house that Ellie runs to on horse, and it looks pretty beat up outside. And if you look at this interior, it's so much cleaner. And I think that was a very deliberate choice. For them to get to this place, and it looks almost pristine. Like there's some wear and tear, but it's actually kind of unsettling how normal it looks when you get to here in the game. It looks nothing like this, and it's supposed to make you think like, wow, I've seen so much rotted out buildings, dilapidated houses, and completely a mess. And that became like the new normal for you, right? For so long. So that when you get to a place like this, it's almost jarring. Like, whoa, it's normal, right? Yeah, even this right here, it's not this bad as you see it in the game. Like, the floor looks perfectly fine almost. And then, yeah, Ellie's here and she's like reading a journal from some teenage kid. And it's this life that Ellie doesn't even know about, right? This must be Tommy. And his wife, I forget her name already. Some various Jacksonville people. Okay, we're looping back. A few more to look at now. we'll just go through them. This is college. She's getting to college now. The university. Or no, this might be the hospital. Ooh, they were thinking about having infected tied up. Look at that. You never see that in the game, although this concept does end up in 2. And it's also kind of like a gameplay element where the infected are tied up, chained, and you can actually unleash them on people. That's something that happens in the DLC. They start to experiment with having the AI, 2 AI factions face off each other, right? And that gets more developed in the sequel as well. Joel, this is more or less the look of Joel. You can see he's this is when he gets injured. 2 weeks after with more serious wound and bandaged. Okay. So it was about 2 weeks that he was down. And that's where the DLC takes place, by the way. When Ellie has Joel holed up in that house, she runs to a mall, and it takes place pretty much all in a mall. This part's really cool. I really like this part. These are just really nice nature paintings, you know? These are just really nice. Regardless of like the game or not. Just beautiful stuff. I wonder if it's like partially like a composite with like photos. Some of them. You never really see places like this. Well, kind of. The snow isn't really coming down too hard at this point in the game. This is this never really translates to something that you see in the game, but it's a really cool image. A dog? Man, I think you're gonna get a dog pal in number 3. Todd Steakhouse. It's where you battle David. Yeah, this is pretty much the battle right there. I had a bit of problems fighting him, but we got there in the end. Oh, that is so gross. I'm changing it. That was gross. This is a cool piece of artwork because it feels like they're really getting close to the look of the game. Not quite there 100%, but really close. That's David. Pretty spot on, David. You never see these characters, but maybe they're like David's family or something. That'd be kind of interesting. Okay, just a few more. This is in Utah. About to see the giraffes. There we go. I really do love this part of the game. It's such a great moment. They pulled it off perfectly. It looks like Ellie's Asian in this picture. If you see on the right, she looks Asian. A zebra. Oh, is it a zebra that Abby finds? It's almost like a mirror reflection of the same scene with Joel and Ellie, but with Abby. And it happens like moments before the arrival of Ellie at the hospital. That's the crazy thing too. Like you see this shot almost from a different angle from Abby's perspective. Whoa, that's crazy. Some bloater shapes or other infected. Okay, this is the last area. Coming back to Jacksonville. Right there. They're just about ready to have the big conversation. The okay moment. Oh, was that it? Yeah. Character concept art gallery. Sarah and Joel. You know how Marvel has these like Marvel What If show, right? It's like What If Ultron won, right? I think Sony should do something like that. Like Sony What If, and like what if Sarah lived and Joel died, and it could maybe not like a full game, but like a short story game or something. That would be really fun. This is a really cool look at Joel, because I feel like they've gotten the face. Like the face is really close to how they end up going with, what they end up going with. And it's really neat that they even made a sculpture too. That's really cool. To get like the lighting and the sense of the 3D dimensionality of the face. And all those poses here, A, B, C, D, E, F, kind of give you a sense of his attitude. I feel like E kind of communicates Joel's attitude the best, and maybe C, because it could be that he's looking at his watch, and C, I can't really tell. Excuse me, but in the top right, there's this kind of alternate look or take on Joel, but it feels too militant to me. It feels too militant, and like the hair that's slicked back and then a little twirl coming over it just seems too, I don't know, it just seems too like bold. Too bold for Joel. And there's Ellie. That picture on the bottom left, oh, she's like hugging a dog. That never really happens, but that's cool. The design of Ellie on the left here, her face seems so like fresh and clean, like too childlike, you know? Whereas the one that you see in the center here, I think it really kind of sells you on this idea that she's like a girl, a young girl, but she's seen a lot. That's the feeling that I get. Approved. Oh no, it says progress. They were thinking about a hoodie on D. It's a bit of a cliche, I think. Progress. This never happens. They're having way too much fun in this shot. But it's something that like you might even like kind of imagine happening for them, like off screen, you know, happier times. She looks too childlike here in this shot. Tess is really cool. I'm gonna, oh look, they have a photo of like a real backpack, the ones that they were trying to replicate, kind of, or it says texture reference. Oh wow, that's an awesome shot for Tess. That's her spot on final render. Really cool. Whoa, look at that. These are like the generic people that are living on the outskirts, I guess. Marlene, just like within or slightly outside of the boundaries. Marlene. Designing Marlene must have been really tricky because she has to be really memorable. You only really see her at the beginning and at the end, right? So you kind of have to be like, oh yeah, that's her. So yeah, having her hair tied back, and like they really did a great job getting that kind of hair very realistic. It's always something that I take note of. It's like when I see her in the game, I'm like, damn, like her hair looks so good, like it looks so realistic. And then when you see her at the end, she's like kind of bare arms, and it you kind of just think like, oh man, she means business. Yeah, her face. This is not the face that they go with for Marlene. This is Bill. Bill looks pretty cool. Well, look at design number 5 there with the paper bag. I guess that was far too silly to go with. It's funny though. Whoa. Designing what like getting your head blown off would look like. That's pretty gnarly. Oh, there's Sam and Henry. Yeah, they were thinking about having them be like being like a black guy. Sorry, like white guys. Tommy looking a little younger in this picture on the left than what they ultimately go with. Tommy's really cool. This looks like kind of generic people. I'm not really sure if they're anyone in particular. This is Tommy's wife. They change her hair. That's not like the hair that they settle on for her. But yeah, that's more or less how she looks. Spot on for David. Very very kind of Christ-like, very Jesus looking. Whoa. Really it really makes you appreciate all the thought that went into designing so much stuff, right? Beyond what you see in the game, they were thinking of so much. It's really cool to see. And that's what makes the game feel so realistic and lived in, because you get that impression that there's just so much more just beyond what you're seeing, right? When David says that there's women and children, right? That's them. That these are the women and children. They thought about that. This looks like a dude from Overwatch. Okay. Infected concept art gallery. Okay, let's go through this really quick because I think it's going to be gross. I don't want to look at gross stuff anymore. Whoa, that's cool. That's really nice. There's something kind of gross but also kind of beautiful about the way they've drawn the fungus and everything. It's really neat. It's like disgusting, but you can't look away. And actually on Instagram, I follow a couple of accounts that take pictures of mushrooms and fungus. And yeah, like it's awesome. The way the light hits these growths coming out of trees and stuff. And I've tried to take some photos of mushrooms and stuff myself, and it's just really interesting. I mean, it's gross when you see it in this context, but there's something kind of beautiful in a natural kind of way as well. But it's also really gross. Whoa. Oh, look. This is something that ends up in part 2. They had already thought about this, that an infected could like emerge and separate itself from a wall. Hey, Goro, what's up? This is dope. Yeah, so in part 2, it's part of like a gameplay mechanic, or mechanic isn't the right word. There's a section of the game where you'll see these parts where it's just a wall covered in fungus and stuff. Just came back. Is this yours? No, this is concept art. I'm looking at the concept art of the game. Yeah, so and you know, these walls are just covered in fungus and stuff, and you just sort of walk by it because you don't even think about it at that point. You're just so used to it, and then boom, they come out of the wall, right? The infected, and it's, you know, it's very shocking and scary. It's a really cool part of the game. It's the bloater. And you can see that they have reference there on the top left and of like actual fungus and how that would translate to the figures, to the infected. And in the game, it kind of acts as like an armor too, and it kind of busts off and breaks off. But yeah, it's really cool. And the image there on the right, it's almost like the bloater sitting on a throne. That's really cool. I like that shot, that picture. But yeah, they pick up like pieces of their own gut and throw it, and it becomes like a spore cloud. On the bottom right, you can see a bit of the skull, but it's like the skull and the fungus are kind of merging together. And this is like the toughest enemy type that you encounter in the game. And for the most part, it's the same applies to the second game. But there is like a boss encounter. It's a little more elaborate. Yeah, see, this is a little too much. Like, we're kind of getting more into like Resident Evil territory with this sort of look. So this is like an exploration, but they don't really settle on this. They never really go this far, I would say. Yeah, and this again, this is kind of getting more into like Resident Evil type of stuff, mixed with the fungus and all of that. And you never really see anyone that far, that goes that far, like on the right side. It's mostly on the left. You see enemies like that. But this concept that you're seeing on the left is something that you kind of see in part 2, where it's like multiple humans kind of fusing together. That's something that you see in part 2. This is very interesting to me, but it seems to be focusing more on like plants and greenery rather than fungus. And there's something very symmetrical about like this image, aside from the arms, that it seems to kind of go against the design of what you see mostly in The Last of Us, where it's very, very asymmetrical. Many of the monsters and bloaters that you see, there's this kind of asymmetry to them, especially in their posing, whereas this is very like straight down the middle, mirrored image. Also, if you look at the feet, it's kind of weird, like it's almost alien like the feet, or like a fantasy creature rather than something that's rooted in being a human. This seems far more taken over by nature. Whoa, this is crazy. Is this like a photograph of a person? And they've put makeup on him? Or it's just like digitally altered a photo? That's pretty interesting. Cool. The one on the right's kind of funny to me. It seems too posed. Like this guy's about to recite Shakespeare or something. It's pretty cool. The growths. Yeah, you never see anything like that in this game. Two figures fused together. But again, that's something that does show up in 2. Whoa. That's pretty crazy. Cinematics. Collectibles? Well, yeah. That about